In this video, we will talk about structured troubleshooting. We have shown in the previous lesson that the general troubleshooting process is happening in the form of the tasks. Now, we will focus on these steps in a little more detail. Let's start with defining the problem. So, all troubleshooting tasks begin with defining the problem, guys. So, however, what triggers a troubleshooting exercise is a failure experienced by someone who reports it to the support group. Okay, on the screen you are seeing a reporting of the problem done by the user as the trigger action. So it is followed with verification and defining the problem. So unless an organization has a strict policy on how problems are reported, the reported problem can unfortunately be vague or even misleading. So problem reports can look like the following. So when I try to go to this location on the intranet, I get a page that says I don't have permission, or the mail server is not working, or I can't file my expense report. So as you might have noticed, the second statement is merely a conclusion a user has drawn, perhaps merely because he cannot send or receive the email. So to prevent wasting a lot of time during the troubleshooting process based on false assumptions and claims, the first step of troubleshooting is always verifying and defining the problem, guys. So the problem must firstly be verified and then defined by you, the support engineer, not the user, and it has to be defined very clearly. So a good problem definition must also include information about when the problem started, if there have been any recent changes or upgrades, and how widespread the problem is. So knowing that the problem is experienced by a single user only and not the others, or that problem has affected a group of users is quite valuable, and it affects your analysis and your choice of troubleshooting approach. So a good problem description consists of an accurate statement of symptoms and not of interpretations of conclusions. Consequences for the user are, strictly speaking, not part of the problem description itself, but it can prove helpful to assess the urgency of the issue. So when a problem is reported as the mail server is not working, you must contact the user and find out exactly what he has experienced. So you will probably define the problem as when user X starts his email client, he gets an error message saying that the client cannot connect the server. So the user can still access his network drives and browse the internet. Before gathering information, you should select your initial troubleshooting method and develop an information gathering plan. So as part of this plan, you need to identify what the targets are for the information gathering process. And based on this plan, you need to gather as much as more information about the issue itself. Then analyzing information. During the analysis of the gathered information, you are typically trying to determine two things, guys. First, what is happening on the network, and second, what should be happening in the network. So if you discover the differences between these two, you can collect clues for what is wrong, or at least a direction to take for further information gathering. Analyzing the gathered information while considering and incorporating existing information such as network baseline and documentation helps you eliminate many potential causes. So you must make note of important influence that your assumptions have in eliminating the potential causes. So assumptions may or may not be true If you end up with conflicting conclusions or scenarios that make no sense, you might have to re-evaluate your assumptions by gathering more information and analyzing the new information correctly. Once you eliminate the potential causes and select most probable cause and determine the responsibilities, then you need to propose the hypothesis. Okay, here you are saying that in my opinion and based on my analysis, I think that this is the root cause of the issue. For example, based on my analysis, the issue is not with the mail server itself, and rather than that, it is with the, for example, mail client of the server. Okay, something like that. So the proposed hypothesis leads us to the next stage of the structured troubleshooting process, and that is testing the hypothesis. Usually, implementing a possible solution involves making changes to the network. So therefore, if your organization has defined procedures for regular network maintenance, you must follow your organization's regular change procedures. So if the problem is not resolved still, you need to have a way to undo your changes and revert to the original situation. That means a rollback plan. And then your troubleshooting job is not complete until you communicate that the problem has been solved. So at a minimum, guys, you will have to communicate back to the original user that reported the problem. If you have involved others as part of an escalation process, however, you should communicate with them as well. Alright guys, we are coming to end of this section, and thank you so much for joining me.